Hello and welcome to the Nua Collective podcast. I'm joined today with Christina Geoghegan, who is a very new artist to the Nua Collective. We are delighted to have her with us. Christina, how are you doing?
I'm doing great, thank you. How are you?
Sure, look, we're fine. We're trekking on, sort of creating work and trying to make things happen. There's a lot of things happening for us here in the collective over the next couple of weeks, and we're just delighted to have you here to talk about your practice and to talk about your artwork and to get to know a little bit more about you, which is just really exciting. So, I suppose the first question that I suppose I'm going to have that I've been asking everyone over the last couple of weeks in these feature podcasts is, what was the first thing in your memory that sparked that whole creative world for you?
I would say probably when I was four in my parents' office, they worked from home and they were illustrating a book at the time. They were both architects. And so I think every kid at some stage wants to imitate their environment. So I was very happy to sit at my own little desk and draw for hours on end with them.
Oh wow, cool, great. So like you've obviously had a big influence from your parents insofar as them being architects and being into the design world. Do you feel that they have made a massive influence in your life?
Definitely, definitely. They're very encouraging. And also where we were kind of in a remote part of Ireland in a way. So you kind of you get creative when you don't have a lot to do and things. So I think that also had a massive impact in giving me the time and space to pursue art or interest.
Oh, cool. So what sort of things were you drawing then?
Well, right, the very first thing I remember drawing was probably The Lion King, lots of sketches of Disney. But then as probably, yeah, from maybe seven onwards, it was all kind of the environment, a lot of horses, dogs, cats, and portraits.
So I suppose you were doing a lot of like representative drawing, light drawing at that age.
Yes.
Wow, okay,
Yeah.
excellent. I suppose thinking about how an architect works insofar as they would make literal drawings of things and they'd be very like particular in how they would present something or in how they would create. So is that something that you've taken from your parents as well? And that are you as literal as them, or do you find that you go into more abstract work, or is it all very specific? How do you draw? How did you?
Very good question. So that kind of transposed. When I was very young, I didn't understand abstract work, and I kind of, in that literal sense, was more influenced by the realistic, let's say, representation of work that my
Mm,
parents did. But definitely coming, around secondary school, I kind of went more into the abstract sense, and now it's very much representational, symbolic, abstract work, whether it be portraiture or landscape. So yeah, that was a big transition for me over the past, well, quite a few years. But my parents would just take out a sketchbook and freehand draw what was in front of them, a lot of nature and things. I
mm.
wish I had their skill of that lifelike representation, yet at the same time very much unique and a kind of sketch style I really admired.
Yeah, is that something that you would be interested in even trying to make, or is it something that you're happy to kind of keep things more like that, a little bit less literal?
Um, it's changed. So I did try it, and I really enjoyed it. However, I think I was just more interested in maybe in some cases the less I became less more interested in the less literal and more representational. So while I did go through phases for about 10 years of this is pointillism, this is line drawing, this is print, um, that kind of transgression went into the more abstract.
Okay, very good. So you went into secondary school and you were saying that kind of things had evolved and some of your practice had changed, and you went from just drawing animals and what was around you to kind of breaking things down a little bit. So in school, how were your teachers? How was that whole process? How did you get on school with art? Did you do it?
Um, Yeah, I think it would be accurate to say I was the artist of the group. Like there's 40 people. It was a very small school. And there's 40 people. People were more into different topics and things like that. But from my memory, I was probably the known as the artist, even though I felt a lot of my classmates were much more skilled than me. I was always impressed, so impressed, and I thought, what? Why don't they do art? Because they're much better.
Hmm.
And I really liked the stuff they did. So my teacher was good. I feel I was probably a bit of a lazy student at times, or a bit of didn't quite do what I was told when it came to art. So, but I got there in the end.
It's very rebellious of you as an artist. It's not that's not unlike what an artist would do, though, in fairness, Christina. And so, can you remember anything particular that you may have made that you were really proud of as a teenager?
Oh, let's see. I was quite happy with the Quantilism series. I did a series. I really like Greek history and things like that. And there's a piece. Is it the Odyssey? In that epic, they mention mist a lot. Weather and natural uh, scenery is very much part of the storytelling, anticipating what's next. And I mentioned mist a lot. So when I did my pointillism series that initially started out as cats, and horses and it's very physical things, but it progressed into very abstract landscapes, mist, snowy scenes. So and a lot of nature, so a lot of accuracy still, but at the same time, a lot of attention to detail and things like that, but still an abstract piece, all with pointillism.
Wow, cool. So, like, I mean, just to now, we've spoken quite a lot about your kind of connection with nature and connection with animals. And tell us a bit more about that. What is your have you still got a love of animals? What is your
Oh,
connection with nature and
yeah, I
animals at the
mean,
moment?
I would say I'm a cat person foremost, but with nature, I went to Greece a few times when I was very young with my family, and the landscapes there, the rolling hills, the intensity of the colors, the contrast and textures between the sea and the mountains and things. That was all. It was so visceral, and just really, really incredible. Just to see something so dynamic. And Ireland is the same, like especially the west of Ireland. There's a rawness to it in nature, and that certainly influenced me later as I went down the path of more landscapes and the materials I used and techniques.
Okay, cool. So, what made you want to pursue design or art as a career? What made you want to make that jump into the professional world?
It's something I've always wanted to be since the age of 4. Apparently, I said I wanted to be an artist, so didn't feel like there's a lot more many other choices. Briefly, I thought maybe an architect, but my parents were quite adamant. Maybe you want to do something else, just because they say it's actually really tough. But it's tough as in,
Tougher than being
it's like, yeah, they're like, oh, the hours are horrible, and you have to listen. Not horrible, but you have much more restrictions in creativity in architecture than I assumed or knew of when I was younger, and said, oh, I'd love to be an architect too.
Okay, good. So what was that then, that transition? How did that transition move from secondary school to your undergrad? What did you do as your undergrad?
I studied, the title was Autonomous Fine Art. I did a 4-year bachelor. It actually turned out to be 5 years in the Netherlands in the north in Groningen. So it was a small student city with loads of internationals. And it was an international class I was with as well, with Dutch students as well.
Amazing. And like what was happening in that program how
That
did
was
that
Yeah, that was amazing. That was my biggest eye opener. I went to the Netherlands because I'd never been before, and it also, at the time when I was looking, it seemed to be very contemporary, very varied, and I wanted the challenge. And that in that environment, I thought, okay, let's try somewhere new and get this experience rather than maybe stay here and get that experience as well. I thought if the opportunity is there, maybe I should just see what it's like. So I pursued that, and it was good. I wrapped my head around what contemporary art was. I'd always come from probably more the physical, literal kind of idea of art into now the contemporary, the performance, the varied mediums and expressions and things. And so at the start, I was like, okay, this is all new? Is this art? I was very much, 19-year-old seeing this stuff for the first time, thinking, okay, where do I fit in? And it was great. It was an adventure.
did you find that your work changed as you went through that
Oh,
process?
completely, completely. So I started going through these phases. I arrived in with, let's say, phases of more techniques and materials and subject matter, to
Mm.
then being encouraged and assisted in kind of finding my own stamp, my own identity, kind of expressing what mattered to me. And for me, that was landscapes and the environment, whether that be the people or the space. But ironically, I ended up drawing a lot of mountainscapes and while being in the Netherlands. So
Oh,
yeah.
amazing. That's very good. So you finished that then, 5 years. Wow, that was a long time. Did you?
I had to repeat my last year, unfortunately.
That's okay. I mean, I think it's the issue, I suppose, with fine art or with anything that's kind of creative. It's very difficult to assess, and a lot of things are very
Subjective.
yes, subjective. That was the word I was thinking of too. And did you find that, like, I suppose, because when I was doing my own undergrad, I think they were always kind of really trying to drive the conceptual element of fine art,
Mm,
of the arts, and trying to figure out how we could make our work conceptual and make our work representative of something, or
mm.
relative to something that was within the conceptual world, or within a conceptual idea. Did you find that was something that they pushed as much in your degree program?
It's a good point, and I've heard that's something that's definitely it definitely exists in the artistic programs. For me, I found that identity was a massive part. Probably the incredible like international cultural influences, being exploring maybe where you came from, where you want to go, even amalgamation of cultures, or even where someone's working, or where they live physically, whether it be an apartment or a particular light. There's a lot about studying and your personality and kind of how you looked at the world and where you came from really was drawn out. And so a lot of my classmates, it's quite incredible. You could really relate them to their work. And one of
Okay.
the reasons, probably one of the definite reasons I kind of took that extra year was because I was very much observing the environment from a distance in a way, just seeing those intangible moments, abstract moments, and trying to bring them back to something representation or physical to look
Yeah.
at or experience. And so, in that way, the identity didn't quite, in that instance or that moment in time, it wasn't very apparent to people looking at it. They went, "Oh yeah, you do landscapes, but what does that mean for your identity and things?"
Mm.
So in that ways, it's a reason for me to. It was a reason that I took that extra year probably to continue that exploration.
Okay, wow. And was there any kind of skill-based learning that you were kind of taught over the course of that 5 years?
We got to do a lot of things, printing, plastics. I was in the metal workshop a lot for my first 2 years, and let's see, hold on, bit of everything: painting, sculpture, wax, clay, yeah, printing, a lot of photography, videography, mm, and yeah, plastics. But I was in the yeah, I went mostly from metalwork into painting and spray painting.
Okay, wow. Yeah, and of course spray painting, because most there's a lot of work that we have that are using there is a lot of works that you have with the collective that are spray painted, and they're quite cool. And so I suppose from university then, did you kind of then establish your voice? Do you think you had grounded yourself in a certain way of making, or did you change again, or was it that case that you kind of were happy with where your practice was?
Leaving uni, I think I was in a dual aspect of, well, both landscapes, but one with these strong lines, these mountainscapes, and these horizons that would kind of um, be incorporated into the environment or the physical urban sculpture. So they'd respond to the pillars, the corners, the stairways, the how people moved and stayed in the space, both
Mm.
the creator, both as a viewer to observe, but also as someone sitting in the space. Like the landscape was kind of responding both to its physical landscape and to somebody, oh sorry, urban scape and structure, and also to the person viewing it. So I kind of left with that one, with that aspect, and then also the spray paintings, which you're probably more familiar with, which is intense color, um, line and shape, and much more abstract.
Okay, wow. And so now I suppose now that you're saying that you're making those sort of works, and it's great to kind of segue nicely into that. There's some really high contrast works that you have created and that you presented. Talk to me a bit about why there's such a high contrast between them. Is there a certain reason for that, or what is your idea behind that?
Um, when you say the high contrast, are you talking about the black and white and black and yellow series?
Yeah, and the blackened
Oh
as
yeah,
well.
the night series. So I moved back up to Dublin after the pandemic, only pretty much last May, and I'm in a lovely little space, but it's a bit small, so I don't really have the storage space or things like that for painting or studio. Like down in Wicklow, I'd be printing in the grass. I'd be taking a massive canvas out into the rain and spray painting and just using the textures of the in situ. And that kind of space in Dublin wasn't there. So, well, I didn't look for it as much. I kind of just wanted to enjoy being back up in Dublin. So I took a bit of a break, and just from there, really, I think it was just being influenced by the environment. So in Wicklow or in the Netherlands, I responded to the environment. And so here I responded to the environment by kind of, in a way, observing and absorbing the stories of people, the people I encountered briefly or got to know over time, and just kind of seeing similarities and differences, even if I were even a stranger on a bus or wait in that liminal space in a waiting room. And so those kind of expressions that I saw in that in between phase, someone in thought and things, really caught to me. And it took me a while, but I eventually found out how I wanted to represent that. And someone put it nicely the other day in a friend of mine in Scotland. She said, "Oh, it's like seeing the light in the dark." And for me, my initial motivation was kind of it's the night is where you see the most, you feel the most, because you don't have eyes on you. It's almost you're able to take that breath and thing and reflect.
Yeah, definitely. And I think reflect is a great word because I think even some of the works and more of the works that you featured with the collective, like Turbulence or Edge of the Wood or Horizon, any of those kind of pieces, they all look as though they are reflecting on a surface or nature or something that you have tried to represent and give to emulate a feeling or some sort of sensation almost of how that would look in the rain or in an environment or under certain weather conditions. And I think you've achieved that quite well in that work. I'm just wondering, is that something that you're going to pursue further? Is that like, because obviously we've just received a couple of new pieces from you, which are the traverse and off track images, which are also kind of similar in style. With the spray painting method, is it something that you're continuing to make as much as the kind of high contrast elements, the print works?
Yeah, at the moment it probably depends where I'm actually in situ. If I'm down in Wicklow for some time, I will take out the canvas. If the weather's terrible, for me it's perfect. I love it when it rains. That means that it's easier to create those layers and work with the wind and the rain and things. So it depends on the inclement and then where I am. And while I'm up in Dublin, I definitely do want to pursue this style. Maybe it might be nightscapes, similar visual representation, or it might be similar style, but different colors and different subject matter. So yeah, I'm hoping to get back to the that kind of digital style again soon. So we'll see. I think it's representative of my interest, like, but now we're consolidated into two things: portraits and landscapes. I don't think it's for now for me if it's possible for me to pick one or the other. There's just so much influence.
Yeah. So you mentioned the word digital, and sometimes when it comes to art and it comes to fine art, there's often a kind of a taboo sense about the use of digital work, and I suppose calling it artwork. What is your view on that?
Oh, good question. And definitely a subject of debate. Not so much debate, but yeah. See, I view debate as like positive thing, like lots of different ideas coming together. So when I say debate, it definitely they're a topic of debate about is it real artwork? it's a diversion of what I used to do, and does it carry as much, let's say, traction, meaning, or gravity, if it is something that could be also reproduced. So for me, I'm open to discussions and opinions. For me, it's alleviating the need to recreate something to represent what's in my mind. Like when I go through a series, it's an intense amount of information and ideas that I want to get out, not as fast as possible, but until I test them, get on paper, see if it even works, I will keep thinking about it. So for me, in a way, that is art to me, is getting the ideas and the representations and the influence out into the world, whether it be digital or on a canvas or even just a notepad. It could be a quote, and let's say Nightscapes. A lot of those titles are quotes. You've got Fraction. It could be an individual title like Fraction, or it could be a quote like "I'm nothing but a shadow in the night" by Williams, from Paramore. It's a a nice song, and quotes from literature really also kind of coming together into that influence.
Yeah, no, I think that makes an awful lot of sense. I suppose there's always going to be a question of the legitimacy of digital art, especially now with the advancement of AI technology and how.
Yeah. Oh, did you see that one about the photograph AI photograph winning a prestigious photography award?
No, I did not.
Yeah, he rebuked it and said, "Oh, I can't accept this." Because it's IA, and he was testing the limitations, um, and the boundaries in which you could, mm, I guess, influence people. I don't want to say deceive. In a way, it is. It depends on your perspective. Challenging, I guess, challenging the norms, and um, yeah, it is. It is interesting. I'm watching Dali closely.
It is interesting, and I find it's like if you're thinking of somebody from the mass public and somebody who is appreciating good artwork or artwork that just looks aesthetically pleasing to someone, and that maybe hits them in the right way, be it the coloring, the composition, the content matter, whatever it is. If an AI generated image or artwork is fulfilling that for them, it's
Mm.
kind of it's the question of whether that's going to almost uh, de devalue some of the work of what artists are presenting, and then also I suppose even more so what digital artists are creating, because if you're creating something with your iPad and it's a digital artwork, even though you may have created from scratch and did the drawing, just used your pen, different brushes and that for it, it doesn't really does it how it balances out between what's auto generated with artificial intelligence.
I think you hit the nail on the head with, I guess, the first line of defense when it comes to art, or that first impact, and that's the visual, and then it depends. What's the story behind it? Is it an AI generated piece that's tricked judges? Is it the story of someone's childhood or resolution coming to a head in a physical representation, or is does it have significance based on the time it was painted and what it was opposing or representing? So definitely the first aspect, or the first line of defense, is going to be questioned and influenced on a massive scale. So I can't say, but it's an interesting question.
Yeah, I think it's something we should discuss a bit further in the future because we want to get back to you. But it's definitely a hot topic at the moment.
I could discuss it all day, but I realize that you probably,
No,
you know,
it's not that, is that we want to get back to you. So let's get back to your studio and let's talk about what happens when you step foot into the studio, or how does that even happen for you? What makes you want to work full
Mm.
stop?
It depends on the studio. So in this case, I would say I have two. There's the one up in Dublin, and then my um, family home in Wicklow. And in Wicklow, where it's a landscapes, I'm using textures and stuff. I'm very influenced. I'm suddenly losing losing names here, but let's see. When I was young, I mean, I still love going to galleries at every opportunity, even if it's a lunch break or just before closing time after work. So I'm always influenced by seeing other works, and that really motivates me, whether it be color or trigger an idea that I had that I put to the side. Um, let's say the work of a contemporary artist, Leah Beggs, for instance. She's an Irish artist. She does a lot of beautiful blue works, and I went through a phase of blue, of fascination and artworks which were specifically blue landscapes.
Mm.
So yeah, I really enjoyed that. And then I don't know, anything that just has a lot of intangible, like the landscapes, it's kind of about capturing that intangible moment. So capturing the shells of rain within the spray paint, depending on the density and consistency, that fragility and that strength
Mm.
of nature is fascinating. So as soon as it starts raining, I'm running out with my canvas, my coat, and my spray paints, and working with the wind. And you just don't. There's the unpredictability of it, even though there will be a result, and it's unique each time. So that would be what happens in that studio. And then in Dublin, just being around people a lot. I'm really fortunate just that I'm in a good location. And it can be a bit noisy, but it's busy, but that really influences me. And I love the work of Magritte and things like that. There's very still portraits, um, and very ambiguous.
Yeah, amazing. No, that's really good. And I suppose it's no, it's great that you have two different spaces you can channel between, because it means you're never going to get bored. And there's always going to be some sort of additional influence that could, and also there'll probably be at some point a connection between the two
Some
spaces.
stage. I won't. I've tried to force it a few times between the line landscapes, the line horizons, and the colorful pieces made more colorful pieces made outside. But if it happens organically, I'm open to it
Oh,
because
that's
I've tried a few times.
if anything, it's probably an underlining connection point that you haven't yet even identified, but it's probably there already. It's interesting to see how these things kind of just churn out from the process of doing and what's created in the bulk of work that you've created. And if you were to go back and look at them all as a full body of work, you'd probably see something that connects them. Is there something that you're working on now at the moment? What's coming up? What's in the mind at the moment? What's about to happen?
Well, back to the dual, unfortunately, the dual process. Not unfortunately, I enjoy it, but it's hard to explain the artwork in one piece or myself in a single piece. So I've got a mural coming up in the style of the Nightscape. So it'll be my first here in Dublin and also first of the series. And that will be influenced by historical Irish painting. That's one of my favorite in the National Gallery. So I will try and take the composition and part of the story into the pose that I and the depiction I display on the mural. So I hope I do this historical piece justice. There will be some process shots as that comes along, and then aside from that, the summer's coming up, so I'll be doing more stuff in Wicklow, hopefully. Even though it's not raining, I am hoping to find another way to.
There'll definitely be rain in July. There's always rain in July.
Absolutely. I'm hoping to find different ways of because I really love the process of using nature to create natural landscapes and stuff. So I'm hoping to do more experiments that way.
Good. Amazing. No, that's all very exciting. We can't wait to see the mural and look forward to seeing what other works you create in Wicklow. There's you look at your work and there is a definite emotion that comes from it. And I think that's even from either work, from either style. And I think you've definitely managed to achieve that in the work that you create, and just excited to see
Oh,
what
thank
else
you.
that comes through. And we will see that across your profile as well on Nua Collective, and we'll see that across everything that we share on our socials as well. So do keep an eye out for looking at new works for that will come up soon. So I'm very excited to see them. I suppose, is there something that you think of? I think there's something that we haven't really touched on as much, other than maybe your parents. But has there been a person in your life that has been a massive influence to you
Oh,
in
that's a
your
good
artistic
question.
practice, obviously?
Yeah, no, that's a really good question. Let's
That
see.
you feel that you may kind of always go back to, or there's like, oh, that work or that person or that kind of style. It may be a poet, it may be an artist, it may be a person that's taught you. It may be like, has there been a massive kind of thought?
Um, Let me think. I'm pretty sure there has. But it's not, as you say, like it's not just so much like maybe not just an artist, but let's say in terms of illustration, and emotion, I'm probably going to butcher this name. I do apologize. Hayao Miyazaki, who leads the visual studio for Ghibli movies. I absolutely love those movies. And then an artist for the portraits, let's say, and that emotion, but more to do with the person, is probably would be Magritte. But I always look to, in terms of music, actually, I've always listened to Ludovico Einaudi and Jan Tiersen. I love all types of music, literally from rock to jazz to literally anything. But when it came to art, especially listen to a lot of jazz and then a lot of piano work
Well, I suppose
pieces.
piano is a very lyrical instrument in itself in the compositions. They create so many different colors in their compositions that you can only be drawn into vivid imagery. And obviously, Einaudi is a very good example of somebody that does that very successfully. So that's really interesting. And I think you're not probably the only one who gets so much influence from music, from composers. I think that's really a really common thing that would happen for artists. And I think it's amazing how the two connect, how those two worlds connect. The music and the art world. I think we are in tandem with one another a lot more than people give appreciation to. But it's good. That's great. That's really good. And I think it's just been great listening to you talk about your world and about your practice and where it's going and where it has come from. And I think a lot of people will find interest in this as well. So looking forward for everybody to hear this. And I hope that those who are listening to it will share it with their friends and family and get them engaged with you and your work. And if they haven't seen your work before, go check it out. It's at nuacollective.com/Christina Geoghegan. And you can see all of her works there, learn a little bit about her bio and her art practice and her artistic statement, and all of that's there. But also you can follow us on nuacollective.com, and on our social channels, including Instagram, Twitter, LinkedIn, whatever. We're there, probably. If you can think of a place, we're probably there. And we're across all of your favorite podcast platforms too, including Spotify and Apple Podcasts. So, Christina, thank you so much for joining us and
Thank you. It's been a pleasure and thank you for having me.
sharing all of your story with us. Looking forward to seeing your work in our upcoming exhibition, which is online, called Portal. That is going to be really exciting because we have a lot of new work to share with you for that from all of our artists on Nua Collective, and you are included in that, and we're excited to share your piece on that too, which is very exciting. Portal is starting on the 10th of May at www.nuacollective.com. So thank you very much, everyone. I'm Eamonn Shanahan, and you've been listening to the Nua Collective podcast.